Call the meeting to order. Are we all present and accounted for? Yes. It's officially 6:04. I'm telling you, that's
Is that bomber
exactly
time?
what it is. Do we have any amendments? Hi, everyone.
Looking a little rough there, aren't
Do
you?
we have any amendments, additions, deletions to the agenda?
I wouldn't mind moving Sherry up, if you wouldn't mind. She's here to give us the update on the Goodhue County Ed District building update, and I know that she's had many evening meetings. If we could move her up, I'd really appreciate it.
So what,
She
do I need to
is
make a correction to the agenda?
Letter F, if we could move that up.
Let's move that up to A1, if we can. That'll come under new business, we'll move it up, and I would, based on that change, and whatever, what else?
She's also doing letter D, so if we could make her C1, that would be best.
C1 instead of A1?
Huh?
Or-
You on A2?
Should that be a change to the?
You're all
agenda?
talking to me at the same time.
Yeah,
It's not gonna
A1
help.
won't fit, you're saying?
No, we should make it a C1 because she's also presenting D.
Yeah, but if D is where it is, isn't that automatically after C, can become C one?
Sure.
Well, I'm just, it doesn't look like it's moving on the paper.
Okay, let's move it to
Sorry.
C1, from F now moves to C1.
Oh.
Sounds good.
I thought we moved F to A1.
No, we're not changing.
Okay, see, you're talking, so you wouldn't know that.
I'll shut
Okay.
up now.
The only correction I see on the agenda
Yes.
is on the very last page. I'm sure you may cover that on the Building Oversight Committee. On the Camp Falls Elementary Oversight Committee, Kathy Sessions is no longer employed with the district. And the Camp Falls ALC Oversight would be Lee Gisbald is no longer the.
We did, Sharon sent those names forward and did make that correction, so we've got on the new one.
Thank you. Okay, based on the change from F to C1, no other agenda items of change, I would look for an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Kurt, seconded by Rob. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Approval of the minutes of the July 22. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for July 22.
Motion by Brenda,
I'll second.
seconded by Rob. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. No scheduled presenters this evening. Finance report, attachment B.
As you can see, it's a one-page, that's real typical for July. You've seen this in the past. Josh isn't here tonight, but I certainly can answer any question that you have on there. We went over that today. Like I said, it's July, our ins and outs are really minimal.
I'll make a motion to approve the finance report.
Motion by Pat,
No, second.
seconded by Kurt. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. I never asked for other discussion, did I? Old business, we have none showing. Moving on to new business, we have the consent agenda items, which are usually enacted under one motion.
As you can see, Jake's been very busy
Good.
hiring a lot of people.
Are there any questions, concerns, statements concerning the consent agenda items?
So the personnel items, apparently the elementary did not get in.
I just signed them today. They didn't make the cut for
Okay.
last week,
Alright.
and that's fine. You will have staff members that Derek has hired that will be starting the school year that you haven't approved yet, but that's real typical, so.
Okay.
What?
I just have a smile on my face.
Tim's a happy guy.
Yeah.
He got his hiring done early this year.
I'll make a
Yes.
motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Kurt.
I'll second.
Seconded by Pat. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Okay, now we got through a bunch of these, we can slow down just a little bit, so we're not leaving at 6:22.
Oh, we get 2%.
Approval of the expenditures. Did everyone had a chance to review? Again, as Beth said, this is summertime.
I did want to just point out at the very bottom, you'll see Zippy's landscaping. We always kind of have questions on those. That's a payout for the end, the salt, the sand. Just something to keep in mind the next time we do that. Josh wanted me to point that out to you, that has become quite substantial, unless winter was a tough one, but.
Are we gonna go up for bids on that again now
Yep.
this fall?
Maybe
That's
this
coming
fall.
out? Okay.
And maybe we can get started on that just a little bit sooner.
There's supposed to be a cold and wet winter.
So they say,
I got a question at 40493,
Okay.
Goodhue County Education District, that program change.
Yep, that happens, like when we move Sharon over, or anything like any
Oh,
program
okay.
changes that we do.
Yep.
They bill us accordingly.
That falls under that, okay.
And I do look those over very closely. You can ask
She did.
Jackie and Sherry. I call them quite often and ask what my bill is all about.
40537, how long of paper supply is that? 16,000.
That'll last us hopefully the year.
Okay.
And actually, Lori, we've gone into a couple years on those,
What is
when
it?
we do our big paper purchase.
Yes, we bought a couple of, so that'll go probably 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get quite a bit out of that. And the paper consumption overall with these two principals and the way they're running things, our paper consumption is down.
Good.
And then Lori sends a, it's like, conserve your paper, and they do. So we're doing well.
We're down to just 2 lease payments for the copiers.
Yes, we are getting down there.
That's, okay, go ahead.
I was gonna ask about the couple on here for the legal services, 40452.
Yeah.
Is that standard, or is that something?
No, this is extremely non-standard. We're kind of in the, after our session last month, we'll pay that as we go. I'll have a grand total for you at the end, but it's much better than having a bill at the very end, so, no, that is not normal, that's very
So that's
atypical.
for the-
Mhm. And that's about our monthly bill right now.
Beth, how about,
There's two.
I'm sorry, how about 40370, Infinity Campus? I wasn't able to meet with Josh at all this time, but do you know what that equipment purchase is?
Yep, that'll be a one-time, we brought in Infinite Campus as our new, student services instead of JMC, which you've heard in the past. There was a little cost to set it up, but I think everyone can tell you it's gonna be wonderful when we get going.
Was that equipment?
Yep, the
Just,
original, the original.
The equipment that we
Lunchroom
purchased,
scanners
actual
and-
point of sale terminals. We've been using laptops to bring kids in, but we actually bought
It's a one-time
real
thing.
Okay.
point of sale terminals. So, we were getting like a year and a half out of a laptop. We ought to be able to get 5, 6, 7, 8 years out of these. They're touch screens, they're wipeable, which our laptops weren't, so,
Okay.
all the fingerprints and everything, we can actually wipe down with cleaners.
Okay. Question I have with that is just
Yep.
sticking to policy, if anything's over 5,000, does that have to go through the board for capital expenditure?
It won't go over the full 5,000 though.
Oh, it won't.
No, because you already approved JMC, which
Oh,
is the actual
okay.
service. This is a
Gotcha.
one-time fee of starting up something, so that we do leave that up to administration.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, but thanks I appreciate you looking that over and
Yep.
asking about that.
Well, I'll ask a question that Kirk actually, he and I were discussing here a little bit ago. $8,000 for library books, and which I have no problems with that. Who decides what books we get? That's what we were discussing.
It's the librarians. They do a-
Librarians do?
They do a lot of research.
Most of them new books, newly out.
Mhm. Yep, we also replace a lot of the ones that are read a lot, or ones that, if Mr. Vanderhoof wants, more than one copy in the library or something. Teachers put in a lot of requests. I think you'll continue to see library books, the number go down, because we'll be getting e-books and things like that, but those are also in those purchases when she does those. And the boxes that Cindy got in over the summer are, yeah. She's right on budget, she never goes over her budget, so.
And then 40525 textbooks, high school?
Social studies?
6 through 12 social studies. Correct.
Their turn on the rotation of.
Yes. Well, given that we have kind of a little bit of a amorphous rotation. It's based on new standards, so we needed, the new social studies standards really threw off what we had, so that was the reason for the purchase.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the expenditures.
Motion by Rob, seconded by Pat. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Consideration to approve the resolution converting voter-approved referendum authority to a board-approved referendum authority and authorizing a new board-approved referendum authority. Make some heads or tails out of that.
Yeah, this is what we've been talking about the last two different, separate meetings. We've actually been discussing it for quite a while. We've referred to the stacking, and just kind of a recap, the last legislative session, they offered $212 to schools over 2,000. We did not qualify for that. The next one was location equity, and that was $424. You would have actually had to vote last board meeting to reject that money. Those schools automatically got the $424 per pupil unit. And then the last one is the $300 board approved, and that's what you're doing the resolution on tonight. This will allow you to go have $724 after our current referendum expires. That money won't come into 2015, so it's important to remember that you're always a year ahead that way. It still won't be quite enough, but what this allows school boards to do, since you're elected officials, is to go ahead and have that 300 so that no school district has to go back and start at zero, because we all know that would be almost impossible to do. So what we're recommending tonight is to go ahead with a board-approved resolution for a referendum instead of going to the voters this fall for that. And again, just a recap on the tax impact, because of the Property Tax Relief Act that occurred, for a $150,000 home, it's $16. So what they did is really took that tax impact and lowered it quite a bit. So that's why you see almost every school going ahead and doing this.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
Is that a resolution, so we have to?
You do have to do, Brenda will have to do a resolution on this one.
Motion by Pat, seconded by Kurt. Okay, Brenda?
The roll call to approve the resolution converting voter-approved referendum authority to a board-approved referendum authority and authorizing a new board-approved referendum authority. Kurt?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Brenda, yes. Rob?
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote. Item C1, GCED, and I'm referring to the building update.
Yeah, I asked Sherry to come in. We're gonna be making some pretty substantial decisions coming up on new building that she's been looking at. She's done a ton of work on this, astronomical actually, trying to get this all together. As you know, they currently lease out our Riverside and our Westito buildings, and then we also have a site over in Red Wing. We have Cannon Falls students that go to all of these locations. I think her update is gonna inform you on why it's almost better to have one site. The savings for all districts can be substantial that way. The unique thing about Cannon Falls is that we have two buildings that we're leasing to her. We don't know what we would do with Westito if the building update comes up and her group says, we'd rather build a brand new facility over in Red Wing. What does that mean to Cannon Falls and the cost impact? We're kind of in a unique situation compared to the other districts that are involved in this. But she's presented at the other 4 school boards, and I thought it was really important that she come to you, and if you have questions, that she do it directly. So Sherry, if you wanna just give them a quick update, that'd be great.
Sherry, could you step up here, and just in case the camera needs a better shot?
Jackie, I brought Jackie Paradis along tonight as well. Maybe you just wanna grab a spot next to Tim and then add on. I can do that. As I may be. Okay. So, like Beth said, we currently operate 3 leased sites, and while those sites have served us adequately to date, we are faced with a growing amount of deferred maintenance. some inadequate educational space, and staffing issues, that because of the sites, we have to have additional staffing that we wouldn't need otherwise. So it really came to a point where the board said, all right, how are you going to start working on this? We recommend that you form a facility committee. So last fall, we formed a facility committee. It was inter-district. We had Dave Davison from your group sat on that committee. Derek Bell sat on that committee, as did others. I think Sharon Noble sat on it for a while. From all the districts. So it was superintendents, it was buildings and grounds people, it was teachers, administration, et cetera. So we could really get a cross-section of stakeholders. We got into that work and realized there's really a lot to dig into, and we really wanted to make sure it was objective. And so our board pretty quickly realized we needed an outside group to really pull this information together. So we hooked up with Springstead. Springstead is an educational consulting group. And they really helped us dig more deeply into this. Don Lifto, who has over 25 years experience in education as a superintendent, specifically as a superintendent to an intermediate district, led that group, so he understood our political makeup and what it's like to have member districts. We also had Roger Warner. Roger has also served as a superintendent across Minnesota and also has intermediate district experience, which is very similar to ours. And then Kraus Anderson, specifically John Hunick, did more of the bricks and mortar piece. So our board at that point directed the Springstead group to really look at 3 options. Could we update our current facilities, and what would be the cost of those? So those were some of the options we looked at. Could we find an existing facility somewhere in Goodhue County, such as some people always say the old Cannon Falls Hospital as an example. Could you identify an existing facility that is either available now or going to soon become available and retrofit it to meet your needs? Or lastly, could you identify some empty land and possibly build a new structure, and to compare all of those items? We looked at possible operational costs, we looked at square footage needs, and we looked at transportation at a kind of a 30,000 foot level. The Springstead group in June, and that report, if you don't have it already, I forwarded it again to Beth tonight to forward it out to you. It's a 50-some page report. There's also accompanying PowerPoint with that. Those are public documents, which really lay out 16 options that they looked at, and they ranked those on a scale of, I think, 1 to 600 as to what our best fit are. The final recommendation from the Springstead group was, if in any way possible, your best solution for the districts is to get under one roof. Right now we have 4 of our 5 districts, or at least in 12-13, we had 4 of the 5 districts transporting to 3 different sites. So, and again, Beth's right, you're transporting to Riverside, well, that's right here. So that doesn't impact you the same that Kenyon Wanamingo, who is transporting here to Wastito and also to Jefferson and Red Wing. So to get down to one site transportation-wise, wherever we located that site, for most of the districts, that's an advantage. We can also realize some savings in staffing. For instance, right now we need to have receptionists. We need to have at least somebody in the office while the teachers are teaching. In some of our buildings, there's not administration, so there really would be no one if we didn't have a receptionist hired at least part-time. So we could realize some savings in receptionists, possibly in some areas such as social work, et cetera. So we have now compiled some of that data. Following the report to the board in June, my board, and Brenda can certainly speak to this as well, directed me to do this, to move forward as if we're going to get into one site, okay? And to specifically look at 2 sites to place that one site at. One, a site that's right behind Red Wing High School, and the other one on the Wastito location. Okay? So that's what we are currently doing. We have now exited phase 1 of our study, and we've moved into phase 2, where we're going to look at that ground level. Remember I said we looked at 30,000 feet in phase 1? Now we're digging in and we're looking at specifically 12-13 kids that came, because we have to use a point in time, and the transportation costs under the structure that was there last year, taking those same kids in their current addresses and transporting them to one site in Red Wing or one site at Westito, and then comparing those three different totals, comparing staffing and comparing proposed operational costs. And they will be different based on the sites. For instance, if we build at Red Wing has said that we could pipe in heating and cooling. So there's different costs in each of those three options. So we're digging in pretty deeply. As a matter of fact, this Thursday, I'm meeting with the group to flesh out what a 60 to 65,000 square foot facility might look like. Because we know when we bring this to our boards, you're going to need to see something concrete. You're gonna have to say kind of what that looks like, and it can't just be this abstract thing in the air. We have an opportunity right now. Intermediate District 916 is building a brand new site for 150 kids, which just happens to be the same number of kids we're looking at. And so it's an approximately the same square footage. So I've been in talks with them about, okay, what were some of the missteps you took? What are some, advantages and disadvantages? We also have some kind of real figures to look at, something very comparable to look at as we do our study. The last thing I want to do is give you some numbers. These are in the report. Our current deferred maintenance totals are $6.8 million across the three facilities. So even if we did nothing, even if we stayed in our current sites and just did the deferred maintenance, we're looking at almost a $7 million increase to our lease levy to cover those. Now, to bring those up to do those plus bring it up to an adequate, to educationally adequate, is $10.8 million. And when I say that, we have a number of ADA compliance issues, for instance, that we're not currently following. And I'm not talking about taking something and making it a Taj Mahal. I'm just talking about bringing it up to today's standards. Our current facilities, like I said, have served us very well. But they are dated, and we're serving some of the neediest kids, and we're certainly seeing not necessarily more children, but certainly some children with greater needs, especially in the area of mental health. Younger kids. So our needs have changed, and technology as well. If we did a remodel, and in addition to Westito, the estimate is $13.5 million. And a new 60 to 70,000 square foot facility is approximately $15 million. The other piece to remember is if we move forward with anything, the Department of Ed has this rule that if it costs you more than 50% of a new build to remodel, they will not allow you to do it. So ran into that a few years ago. So if we know that a new facility is going to be about $15 million, anything over about $7 million will not be approved by the Department of Ed. So we're also facing that. I have no idea which direction my board will go, but I know that we're facing some pretty tough decisions with those deferred maintenance issues that we have. Our goal is to complete phase 2 in October and November. We're bringing that to our Goodhue County Education District Board. They might need one board meeting, they might need 2. They may decide to move forward, they may decide to stay exactly where we are and just start working on the deferred maintenance. But either way, the lease levy is going to need to increase in order to cover that deferred maintenance. I'm going to go that direction or we go in the facility. There is no statute in the state of Minnesota or nationwide that says how a decision like this is made at the board level. So 287, Intermediate District 287, about 3 years ago, I think it was, 2 years ago, thank you, that's why I have Jackie with me, she's the numbers girl. 2 years ago, had to make this decision with their members, and the Intermediate District Board made the decision, and it never went out to the member district boards for input on that. Certainly they were giving input through their member on the Intermediate District Board. 916 that just made this decision did it the other way. Their Intermediate District Board made the decision, and then it went out to each individual member. Superintendents and I discussed it, and we feel very strongly that we want to bring it back out to you as member districts.
And I think the reason for that is our member districts are very unique in the sense that We own 2 of the 3 facilities they're already using, so financially, it's substantial for Cannon Falls. And if they were to build in Red Wing, like someone like Kenyon Wanamingo, they are transporting all of their students now over to Red Wing. So location for them is an issue. But if you build a new site in Red Wing, you may get a town like League City that wants to join our ed district, and that can be financially beneficial for everyone. So the reason why the superintendents feel so strongly that it comes back to you guys is it is substantial. Even a place like Goodhue currently doesn't use the different sites to the extent that the rest of us do. So it's really important that we come back to all of you, because in our situation, I think we're very different. Would you agree to that?
I do. I think when the final study comes out, it will still be a cost savings to you because of the lower tuition bills that you're going to realize. But we'll see that in the study. So we'll have the Ed District Board will make some kind of a decision. If that decision is to move forward, then I will be coming out to each one of the boards to get approval at the board level. It doesn't need to be a unanimous vote, but it will need to be a majority vote at each individual district board. I would hope to do that in November, December-ish. Again, I'm not picking out paint colors. I mean, this is a very long process, and this is not something we want to rush through or hurry through. We want to make sure that we have all the data. So my main reason in coming to you tonight is to hear what I'm saying now, but to also to look over those reports. And if there's specific information that you're going to want that isn't mentioned in there or I didn't allude to tonight, please let me know what that is, because we want to make sure that when it comes time for you to make a decision, if it does, that you have what you need to make that decision.
So our present model, if you
Mhm.
will, is 916, who's just a little farther ahead than we are, or is it, or
About 2
much
years.
farther ahead? And they have 150 approximate, and
Mhm.
you're saying that we have about the same, and
But
we're,
they have multiple sites. They are still going to have a north site and a south site because of the geographic area that they have a much larger geographic area than we do.
What district are we talking about there?
That's right.
Woodbury, that area.
and that, but we have multiple sites at this time as well. We've-
Correct.
Wastedo and Jefferson, is that the Deerview that we used to know
Deerview,
as?
Upwards, and Step, yes.
And then we have Riverwood here.
And Riverwood is our local.
Mhm.
And you see those 150s as being, lack of better, a stable number, possibly on the increase for our own.
Mhm.
I would say most certainly on the increase.
It's not going to go down.
And at present, the involvement of the Ed District, the 15 million, just for example, would be spread out equally among all residents in Goodhue County?
Oh, that's a great question. No.
No.
No, it's, every town has its own tax, am I using the right word, tax capacity?
Tax capacity, it would be spread on your lease levy, which is spread on net tax capacity. So it impacts every school district a little differently. We would spread the debt, as we currently spread our lease levy. Sherry and a couple of the other superintendents are working on an agreement that will formalize that. So Cannon Falls will get the same share of the debt as they currently get of our current leases. And then it would be
That's a good
spread
way to put it.
on net tax capacity.
Overall, using the 15 million number, that would be an increase of I think the range was $14 to $31 per year on 150,000 of marketable,
Of taxable market value.
taxable market value. Thank
Say
you.
that one more time.
Oh, thank you. A range of $14 to $31 on 150,000 of taxable market value.
Yep.
Notice that that's because of the farmland piece. It's not just a $150,000 home.
Yep.
Sherry, how did they configure I know they're not hard numbers, but the 15 million, where?
Great question. We sat down and we really looked at all of our programs, decided the amount of rooms we would need, gymnasium space, et cetera. It's actually only, we actually have much more space than that right now. But some of our space is 3 gymnasiums, duplicated hallway spaces, duplicated cafeterias, none of which we can use. You know, I mean, it's, so it's a little, it's like, you have all this space, but it's not the right type of space.
Right. Not usable square footage.
Mhm.
Right.
Always aren't usable square footage, classrooms are.
And we did look at the 3 current sites. Your Riverside site, you don't own beyond the walls, and we can't build up at. The Jefferson site, there's not room to expand at all. So Wastito, of the 3, was the only one that would be a possibility. And that's why we kept that certainly on.
No. On the deferred maintenance, where did those numbers come from?
Oh, that's from your own custodial, from Dave. Mhm. Directly from the sources. Anything else? Please send me thoughts, questions, things you want us to consider.
And consideration is being given to the whole county-wide right now as to where this locale could end up being. But the Wastito site is at least in the thought process, which would be possibly raising that facility.
It would be my first pick.
Yes.
I don't know if it is
I think
anyone
it's,
else's.
yeah, it is one of the options we are currently looking at. The biggest issue is transportation, which sounds kind of silly because it's in the middle of the county. And I wish that I could go back, 200 years in time, would that be enough time? And move the county seat into the middle of the county. Because what's happening is the kids that attend our programs get a lot of county services, and they travel out to those county services. Business relationships, even here in town, Riverside has connections with businesses. We have 14 formal arrangements with businesses in Red Wing. So, the Brick House, for instance, it's a restaurant in Red Wing. We have kids that go there every week and do work experience activities. So if we were at Wastito, we would be transporting in the middle of the day, every single day, in for those kids. So it's an added cost there.
Just because
The
it's-
heating and cooling is another example. So that's where it's gonna lower the cost. Better or not, that's where the cost pieces will come in. But we will bring all of those with you when we are ready to make a decision. So, and maybe Wastito will end up being the most cost effective. And cost effective won't be our only decision point either, so. I know Karsten was.
You've done a lot of work on this, I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.
All right, thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Let me stay for restricted
Yes,
procedures. Is that
just stay
necessary?
with me.
Okay.
It's easier.
So restricted procedures,
Well,
switching gears.
let Bob
Oh,
do
sorry.
his thing.
Well, that was only a discussion item, even though I had a
Yeah.
motion in a second, so, moving down to item D. Consideration to approve restrictive procedures plan for 13-14.
Thank you. This is a plan you've had in place for a couple of years. It is a procedure that needs to be board approved. It needs to hang in your district office and be available to the public. There were a couple of changes, and one of the changes was how they define the word emergency. Up until this point, emergency could be when a child was damaging property. That has been stricken from the law, and now an emergency procedure, which is the only time a restrictive procedure can occur, is only when the child is causing serious harm to themselves or to another. So they can tear your building apart. You cannot use a restrictive procedure. If they are harming themselves or others, you can. So that was one major change. Second major change was there has always been a requirement to have an overview committee for this policy, and if you turn to the oversight committees on the last page, actually on the very back, and it used to be the requirement was for that committee to meet once a year. It is now quarterly. Your district has not had restrictive procedures in over a year, so I don't anticipate that will be an issue for you. I will say that I do need to point out, as you approve that you please approve that with changes to that committee, because we have a couple of staff that have left us and we need to update their names. The last change in there has to do with the age. Previously, there was not an age restriction on restricted procedures, and now children under the age of 5 cannot be placed in a prone restraint. So that was added to the law. I think that's the highlights.
You had them crossed out.
Yes. Thank you.
And these are statute-based,
Yes.
used,
Mhm.
essentially use the boilerplate.
Exactly, right out of the statute. We took the language right out of the statute, placed it in
Yeah,
here.
can't do much to
We do, you know, this is one of the areas we train, a number of, Derek's been through training in the last week, Tim has been through training in the last week. I'm sure Sharon has back there. We do need to, any staff that are going to use a restricted procedure must be trained, and we need to have those names available to the Department of Ed and report to the Department of Ed on every restricted procedure used. So it's a very,
You know, they would check it. If something happened, they would check that
Oh,
list.
absolutely. Do they have to have first aid as well?
no,
Yeah.
Really?
no.
What's that?
It makes zero sense
No
whatsoever.
first aid, they don't need to know first aid.
Ours is not the reason why.
It
I guess
is
that's a
un-
different
It is
policy.
an unfunded mandate, I will point that out, and we spend a tremendous amount. We train staff in CPI and PCMA, another one of our trainings. I will say to cut down costs, we've gotten our own trainers now, so we have a train the trainer.
It's still very expensive.
It is.
So, Sherry, if they were to, say for instance, starts breaking windows, would that be considered a danger to themselves with glass? And
I would think if they're cutting themselves, I would consider that they need a
If
restricted
there's no-
procedure.
You just gotta
But
throw that
if,
out, and you can't
if
pick up a
a
computer and
four-year-old
smash it on the
runs
floor.
out of your
That's
preschool
not
room, is
dangerous.
just running across
could hurt the back.
the open field, that would not be,
Huh.
so.
But when there's a road at the other end,
Is there a
it could
car on
be.
it?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't say it makes sense, but there you go.
I understand what you're saying,
There's nothing common.
you're stricted by the law.
Andrew,
I'm just not saying they make it all.
Need a motion to approve
Yes.
this?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion
I'll
to
second.
approve the restriction.
Thanks, Sherry.
Keep us on track, Brendan.
Brenda, and seconded by
Jerry.
Jerry, to approve the restrictive procedures plan for the upcoming school year with the amendments as shown to meet statute. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Consideration to approve the truth and taxation hearing date as December 16th. My, oh my, December 16th, huh?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, seconded by Kurt. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.
Lori, will that be our only meeting in December then,
Yes,
usually?
correct.
Okay.
Consideration, item G, consideration to approve a $500 stipend for the curriculum chairman. That needs a little explanation, so.
Yeah, you know, it's been, I was chairman for 3 years. Steve Frederickson was a couple years before me. We had Ann Fick before that. Tim has now taken a couple years. It has really become consuming on administration. We are, as we've said in the past, extremely administratively tapped. We really like when we have staff that are coming through that have unique talents or skill base. And a year ago, we hired a staff member, Jamie Winchell, as our DAC coordinator. She's also going to be chairperson of the staff development committee. And at our last administration meeting, it just fits so well. And I've had teachers approach me too that, you know, what would happen if we had a teacher run that? We still need our administrators there. There's parents on that committee. It's a well-oiled machine because I think Tim has done such a great job with it. But it ties in so well with our DAC and our staff development. But unfortunately, to have a teacher run it, there is a stipend involved instead of just assigning it to administrators. I think it's money well spent. It's one thing off a principal that is really tasked to the limit. So it would be my recommendation. Ms. Winchell is also looking at working on her administrative licensure. So it gives her experience base working towards that. With teacher evaluation coming up, we're going to need licensed administrators amongst our staff. A lot of superintendents are a lot farther ahead of that than I am right now, as far as encouraging them to go back and get their administrative licenses, because we're going to need those people. So, you know, if you say no, it's fine. It'll be Derek's turn. If you would like to keep it off the elementary principal's plate, I would suggest us going ahead with a staff member.
You have money in your budget for this?
Not earmarked for this, but I have, yes, a certain,
Slush.
yes, absolutely an area where this would come out of.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, seconded by Brenda to approve a $500 stipend for the new curriculum chair.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
Once someone was put in that position, both Derek and Tim would still be available at the committee meetings and all that.
Okay, sure.
We've.
No, they still
Everyone.
need to be
Yes.
there. Yeah, they would
Okay.
still be at every
Yeah.
single one. It's vital that they're there.
Yeah.
It, it would probably bring more meaning to the meetings to have someone who can really put more attention to it.
Yep.
You know, we
Jane would be
talked
the
about
perfect person.
doing like curriculum alignment. That's something they can do on their own and bring it to the committee, and all these things that Tim really wants to do, but just doesn't have the
Yep.
time to do.
Is this just an annual thing that needs to be done every year?
Yeah,
or how is
I
that?
don't want to make it a permanent position.
Okay.
This would be, I wanna give it kind of a trial run. I may come back to you at the end of the year and go, you know, we need this back administration,
Okay.
and that'll be a decision that we make for that.
Are you gonna feel like you're gonna be entrusted with this
Okay,
responsibility?
we've had a motion and a second and discussion.
And I'd just like to thank,
Tim.
Yeah, Tim, I was gonna say Derek. Tim, for, good job you've done the last 3 years on the curriculum committee, chair.
I don't think I'm going anywhere, so, thank you though.
What's your name?
Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Item H, consideration to approve a request to work part-time September through May from the custodial department.
You know, this one I didn't want to put on the personnel report, because it's always a little unique when someone wants to go back to school, if a teacher wants to take a sabbatical or anything like that. I just thought it'd be better to have it in the minutes. We have a custodian, you approved it last year, we're bringing it to you again. September through May, he would like to go part-time. It worked out really well to have him go full-time in the summer, obviously, because that's when we need more help. And so Brad Ringens has opted to do this again. I think it's great. He's almost done with his program, and it's an opportunity where we can have, Dave can use him very well with what we've got going on.
It's kind of cut down our overtime, isn't he? Isn't he working
He
some
does a
weekends and
Thursday,
such?
Friday, Saturday, so it's really cut down on overtime. And we have one of our other part-time people, instead of just being a sub, now matching the other hours, so. It isn't costing us a thing, but I do think it's important that you approve it every year.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Moving down to reports, board members. Anything for the cause?
Been a quiet summer.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing. We have no students and
Who's our new student, Tim? Have you thought about it yet?
Is that right?
Yes, I believe Hannah Drummond.
Oh, perfect.
so Hannah Brumman will
Still
be
reading
with
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yes, she'll replace Kaylee Stiles.
Okay, good choice. Gosh, do we get to that time? We don't have any reports from,
You know, I would just like to give kind of I've had 3 of you email me now where we are in enrollment. We're up again, 3rd year in a row. I won't have exact numbers. I wanna wait till Lori can go in and do a true ADM report, because, you know, it looks like elementary right now, we have 32 enrolling and 11 exiting. But if you look at where they ended the end of last year, we're up 8. And if you do the same thing in the high school, we're up 6. So that would put us at 14. But Lori can tell you, when you plug in the system, it isn't always that. We always wanna do it by our adjusted pupil units. So until we do that, we wanna see where we're at. But as of right now, we're up, which is phenomenal.
Bus routes from mailed out Friday?
Bus routes were, yes, and I'm sure you got a lot of phone calls too. It's gonna be fine. We've got everything worked out. Andy and Joe have been working their tails off. Lori has put in extensive extra hours getting them finalized. She wasn't supposed to do that, that's correct, but Lori is a very helpful person and wants to do that. So, yeah, I think things are working out. It's been unique this year, and the reason why I appreciate her doing that, because I need her back too, but it's been hard with Infinite Campus when you switch over things like that. It's a ton of data entry. I mean, all the secretaries and Lori helping with that. If she wouldn't have helped with that transition, it would not have gone as smoothly as I think it will next Tuesday. So, it's the 1-year transition. I think we're fine, but SafeLink has done a really nice job.
you know, even though they're not on for this time, we will be okaying some hires, at least at the elementary school. And we're gonna be doing that after the fact, actually. So you know, we use our expertise from our admins, but maybe Derek, you could just share a little bit what's happened to cause us to hire.
I'd love to. Thank you. Well, a lot of changes, actually. You can kind of see the community ed. I think I actually have more than community ed. And, you know, the thing is, we're overhauling the schedule, and that's the biggest purpose for the hires. And what we're gonna be able to do is basically make our schedule more efficient. In doing so, we need some extra lunchroom and recess supervision. And so we went and added on a couple of pairs that are already employed, actually a lot of pairs that are already currently employed in various community ed and at the elementary. Added on just, you know, some supervision pieces to them, but then also added some new hires for that. We're extremely excited. Basically, the pairs will be assigned to a grade level, and the grade level those kids will get to know that para, and the para will get to know the kids. And part of our PBIS initiative is to provide that common language and that consistency among not only the discipline and the consequences, but the praise and you know, having someone that's always going to be there for those kids during lunch and recess is, I think, is just going to be great for the kids especially. So the other changes, you know, we with the the addition of the fourth section, fourth grade. So that's a change as well. That's on there. We're looking at interviewing tomorrow. What happened was we moved a teacher in there. I don't know, can I say her name?
Yes, please do.
So Ms. Kylie Wright was our RTI specialist in 4th and 5th grade last year. She's slid into that position. I mean, it's pretty much deja vu to last year. At this time, I was saying the exact same thing, and moving Stephanie Bowen into a 4th section. We got class list finalized last Friday, and thank you to the parents who helped and elected to move into that section. We'll hire for that RTI position tomorrow, or interview at least for it, and I think we've got some good candidates. So. Otherwise, you know, just the other changes were staff members that have left our district and are replacing them. So.
You know, I think Derek and I have both been asked a lot, you know, why do you cut and then bring a teacher back? You did it last year in 5th grade, you're doing it again this year. You know, our job, and I think all of our job, is to balance that checkbook at the end of every year. And if we don't have those kids, you get 7 new kids to move into a grade level. Obviously what happens at $6,000 per pupil unit, it pays for it to do that. But until we have those bodies here, I still think we made the right choice by looking at some of those things. But it's been a lot of work for Derek. He's sure, I mean, calling people on weekends and things like that, trying to catch parents, so it's been great.
I think our commitment to our community has always been, as we're cutting everything else, we want our class sizes to remain as low as we can possibly afford them to be. And, you know, we could be looking very easily at 30 plus in our 4th grade, just from the increase, or right about 30.
It was creeping up there. You know, definitely 29. We were at 29. You know, but it was literally at 26 when we started. I mean, we had, you know, one class, I think it was 2 classes at 27, I think. And we had 7 new enrollments in 4th grade alone. Nobody could have planned for that. So, but it would have been an eyesore had we had the 29 across the board. So I'm thankful that the teachers, and I know a lot of probably all of the parents are thankful as well. So I think it's going to be a great thing.
How does it all day, every day affect the K group? I mean, we've averaged 80 probably over the last few
I
years.
think we're at 81.
And then we have some, special ed.
Right.
So it's creeping up there.
Yeah.
It's closer to.
It's not a decrease,
Yeah, it's
for
up.
sure. If anything, it's an increase in kindergarten. So.
What's new?
Just a few things. You've already approved these names, but I just wanted to say officially welcome to Heather Roseman and Ryan Donnelly to the staff. Heather will be teaching some English classes at the high school level. Ryan is both high school and middle school math. Can I talk a little bit about MCA stuff? Is that okay?
I'm gonna have you actually present on it.
Can I say some good
Sure.
things? Because I'm
Yeah.
kind of excited about a couple
Yeah.
of things here.
Of
So,
course.
we have been looking at some preliminary MCA data, and our math scores show great improvement, 16% in the high school over our 2012 score, so I'm really excited about that. This is the big thing though. When the state applied for the No Child Left Behind waiver a couple years ago, they created this multiple measures rating scale. And this MMR rating is made up of 4 pieces for high schools: proficiency, graduation rate, growth, and decrease in the achievement gap. Our 2012 score came in and we're number 22 in the state.
Wow.
So,
Impressive.
Just so you
The
know,
top
I
in the
sent that
whole
out to the school.
HBL.
They didn't know what MMR was.
well, you know, it's definitely an area for celebration, so number 22 in the state. And when you look at the lists of high schools that we're above, and you think about high-power academic schools, we are above of all of those. So, definitely an area for celebration for our school.
Great job.
So,
Congratulations.
Is this a direct correlation with specialists being hired?
I don't know that I can say that yet. I can say that it is a direct correlation to all of the work that our staff has done to align their curriculum to the standards that we're teaching. You know, surprisingly, I've been learning a lot about this MMR because it's new for everybody too. You know, you don't really think of our school as having a lot of diversity as far as areas, but when I looked at the proficiency ranking, you know, our proficiency scores were well above what our target scores were for all of the different minority subgroups that we had. So every single subgroup, special ed, free and reduced lunch students, you know, every group, we were, you know, tens of percentage points above what our target areas were. And again, you don't think of us having a huge minority population, but our achievement gap score was, I think we were in the 91st percentile as far as achievement gap reduction. So there's lots of reasons for celebration with what that MMR shows. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, it's very good news for our staff and for our students.
And you know, in keeping with continuing on here, just getting some reports, I'm gonna ask Jake how his summer went in AD. You're thinking fall sports, you're well into them?
Yep, fall sports now got going. We've had our first couple soccer games. 3 boys teams. The girls' numbers weren't quite as good as the boys, so we'll just have the varsity girls team. Hopefully have a couple JV games if we get a couple more junior high kids come out as the school year gets started. But fortunately, we're 0-3 combined at this point, but the coaches said the kids are working hard and are doing some good things, so hopefully we'll get that win column pretty soon. Community ed, you guys saw we had 3 new teachers this year in community ed. Our preschool classes, we have 5 sections, all but one of them are completely full, so. It's been a very busy summer, but I can't wait for fall, so.
How are they handling the heat?
Pretty good. We had to cancel a tennis match today because of the heat, and actually got a tournament tomorrow we canceled. But the coach has been careful. Soccer went inside today, the girls' soccer team just stayed inside today, and football stayed and just shoulder pads and shorts, so. They're handling it pretty well. It's gonna be a long week though, it's too bad. We had a cool summer, now we get hot.
Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
game week, and it's super hot, so.
Did we ever enter into any formal agreements with Randolph as far as soccer and that? or-
No, their AD left midsummer, and they didn't hire until like a week and a half ago, so nothing did get done before the year, but all good news is we will be in the conference too next year for soccer, and then we have a schedule, a 6-game, 7-game schedule put together for us right away without having to search the whole state for teams.
Thank you.
Yep.
Beth, as long as nobody else on the schedule has been speaking.
Oh, I've said all my
Okay.
good news.
Where are we at with the mural?
What's that?
Where are we at with the mural?
Which one?
The
Science room.
shops?
It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's done, if you wanna
it's-
come look at it.
You can go
sometime.
down there and look at it, it looks great, I thought they did a really nice job with it. She followed everything we asked her to do, you know, do the pencils first, get it approved, she just did everything they promised they would do, so. Yeah, I think Mr. Shop feels like he's pretty cool right
It
now.
loo- it looks good.
It does look good,
It looks very good.
it does.
Will you be doing anything at the meeting, or I suppose we'll go to facilities first on the incident?
I actually thought you were referring to, they're starting to work on a mural above the auditorium, or start proposing that. That'll be coming to you too. That was, if you remember correctly, in the original building plans. They were gonna have an artist come in and do it, and it was quite expensive. So obviously, when we have artists in town that can do the beautiful things downtown and teachers that can do that, we think we can probably use some of our own, you know, those beautiful, you know what I'm talking about, right above the auditorium. So I thought that's maybe what you were referring to, so.
Could we get a wailing wall?
Okay, upcoming meetings, regular board meeting is September 23rd, and among those items on there will be the principal eval process and the booster club eval process and forms. If anyone else has anything they would like added to the agenda, please speak with Lori or Beth and add your concerns.
How about, how often are we gonna do it? I think, what do you think about board retreat? When do we do that, like, twice a year? I mean, it's just a good time to get together and just talk a little bit upcoming year. It doesn't have to be, just maybe we wanna set a date for it, just to have something again.
You know, it's all, in the past, right or wrong, was always a January item,
Okay.
just after the first of the year, and we had one.
Yeah.
And we can certainly continue with that, or whatever your wishes are, actually, so.
I'd like to see it after your big, you know, when you guys go up there for January for the MSBA conference. I think sometimes the theme that goes along with that really can relate well to your retreats.
Mhm.
We went down, Lori and some of the other admin team, we went down to Byron and listened to the same speaker we had last year. And I know many of you heard that, and it was kinda nice to see the consistency with that, so.
Can we meet more than once a year for retreat?
I think fall and spring would be perfect.
I do too. I just think it'd be good just to get together and just,
Well, I think the spring one is, or the winter one is designed, like you say, for the MSBA, but to
Yeah.
have another theme of, I don't know, beginning of the school year, but pull it to a different direction for that retreat.
Mhm.
You know, maybe more with the staff, with the facilities, or what's going on here, or something, but I don't know, change it up, so we're two
Yeah.
different themes or two different
Yeah.
reasons for the meetings, for the retreats.
How about, Lori and I will look at calendars and we will find a fall and a spring date that looks good and we'll just propose them and see what you guys think.
Okay.
What do you think about that? Okay.
Just don't hit
just
your head,
powwow a
Susan.
little, you know.
Don't get your head.
And then, I did send out a notice about doing cabinet meetings this year. Rob's responded, it works well in his work. I don't want him to say anything, I don't want him to do anything, but I think it's a
Don't do
good,
it anyhow.
it's a good
You want him to not say
communication,
anything?
method. A lot of superintendents use them and really like them. Notice I'm saying, you don't need to say anything.
Don't speak.
She doesn't want me to say anything. I might.
But it's a really nice way to get everyone around the table and hear what's going on in every department.
Disguise.
We're gonna try it this year, I still need to have my admin meetings, but it'll be nice to have all my lead of my departments. So if any of you ever wanna join us, just let Rob know that you wanna go that month,
Okay.
and he won't come.
You mentioned anything on Steel Drum?
Steel drum?
You mentioned anything about
Oh, yeah.
Steel Drum?
Oh,
Steel
yeah,
drum.
I'm gonna continue to
Good
do
one.
my Good News Friday, and this week it happened to be the Steel Drum, won to go present the music, their big convention that they have in February. The interesting thing about it is they're doing it on February 14th. I've already submitted them, to be at the MSBA conference, and that'll end up being around the same time, so they could have two, I mean, cause you kept saying, you know, you've gotta get these guys submitted, you gotta get them going, so we'll see. They haven't asked for a videotape of them yet, so I don't know if they're in the finals for that or not, I haven't heard anything, so. But yeah, it's always neat when they also were in the Ellsworth, parade, that's great, you know? And they made money for being in the parade, and now they can use it towards, buying more steel drums, so. Yeah, we've got some really great music stuff going on all summer.
No, I was at the fair that day, but I didn't go out to see the parade.
parade.
Oh, well.
Yeah, so if I had known they were in the parade, I probably would've came out the front gate and watched. I didn't know, so.
Well, by the time we meet next time, school would have started.
I do have one thing that I wanna bring up if I can.
Do it.
There's been some emails around, I think we're all aware of the Lori's office being moved over here and all the rest of that stuff. And I was talking to Lori earlier today, so I kinda sympathize with her because, my work area, at 3M that I worked in for about 8-9 years, I was going through some of the same things that she is going through now with the sinuses and the watery eyes and the things of that nature. They traced the issues at my work, and there were several of us that were struggling with these things. They traced that back to a coworker of mine who had a cubicle within a few feet of, we're all packed in there, like lab rats up there at 3M, but she had been in that same cubicle for a long time, and she had many plants and many different things that were there, and after a lot of testing and a lot of different disinfecting and a lot of things that they try to do, they actually found out that these plants that she had in this cubicle for years and years and years were putting out mold spores, which were affecting quite a few of us in the area. That had to prompt a literal move of all of us and a whole swath of this floor getting carpet pulled up and having a brand new cubicle walls and the whole 9 yards come in. I've seen some emails come back and forth, and I know people are trying to do what they can. I just want to stress that I've been in the situation, and I know that in some of these situations, there might have to be a whole tear out of some things if there's an issue in that office, for her or anybody else who might be going through it. When you start talking about buildings like this and even one area infected with any form of that stuff, it can actually get into the ventilation systems and affect quite a few people. And even though maybe Lori right now is the one that's suffering with this, it might also be having an effect on other people who are taking sick days throughout the year for the same symptoms, and we're not thinking about it because they're all the way over to the other side of the school. So anytime you get into these big buildings, and I just want to point that out because I see some of these things come back, and I just want to make sure that and I'm not questioning whether or not the right things are being done. I'm just saying that I want to make sure that we do everything that's possible to find and eliminate the problem, because my experience was that we can go around and around and around with a quick fix here or a quick fix there, and it may not solve the problem.
I'm taking it
And I
extremely seriously.
I don't want Lori, and I don't want anybody else having to deal with the fact that when they come into work, they feel ill during the day. I mean, that's
Like
not a pleasant place to be.
Following Dave
I've been there,
Davison's,
so.
lead on all of this, but we're following what the hygienist is telling us to do. So, the one thing, and you saw that today, is I'd like a follow-up with IEA and just have an all clear. I mean, the hygienist is a separate company. It'd be nice to have them come in and do a true all clear. So, yeah, you saw all those things, but we are taking it very seriously and trying to help her, because I firsthand can tell you, the minute she walks in, there's something that is affecting her. So I agree, and we're taking it very, very seriously.
And again, it could be the littlest thing as a little bit of mold in a rug that can affect individual people differently. For me, it was always right here, but I had coworkers that would get sick and have to go home, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Public forum. Anyone wish to speak? Or should I say either one of you wish to speak? It's,
Slim pickings tonight.
next time we meet, school's gonna be started, and, we've come a long way over the last couple of years. More funding is gonna help our district, less of a tax impact on our constituency. We should be very pleased with that. In a very austere budget, if you will. We've run on a shoestring for a long time, but scores are up, students are up. We just got a lot of things to be both thankful for and excited about as our school starts. And sometimes, it's just another year. But just know that good things are happening in Cannon Falls, and people in this room should be very proud of it and take some credit for it as well. So congratulations to everyone for that. Okay, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Pat. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are closed.
You want
Beth, do we have any meetings coming up here soon, facilities or transportation?
Nothing on there. Transportation had a date.
This is what you reported, wasn't it?
I don't remember what it was, it was me and my
Do
other.
that, Pat?